Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on May 4th, 2016. I am Dave Biddle, and I am joined by the People's Champ, Matt Baxendell. Bax, I did a story for the site earlier this week talking about how the fact that there's 21 redshirt freshmen on this roster, 21 scholarship redshirt freshmen, which is the most in the country. The Buckeyes will also have 24 true freshmen. So 45 freshmen total on the roster, scholarship players. That's out of 85 scholarship players on the Buckeyes. Talk about the pros and cons. What do you make of having so many freshmen on this roster?
Well, this is the byproduct of having such an exceptional draft class this past year. It's the byproduct of having all those super sophomores that led us to the 2014 National Championship play major roles the last couple of years. The truth of the matter is these kids are all, between the true freshmen and the redshirt freshmen, they're all from classes that were top 5 or 6 classes nationally. They just haven't had their opportunity yet. So what you're looking at isn't just the biggest number of unproven freshmen. It's also the biggest pool of unproven elite talent that hasn't really had a chance to prove what they can do yet the last couple of years because they've been so locked out of getting on the field by NFL talent in front of them. So the way I look at it is that this is almost a gift of talent just waiting for the Buckeyes. Everybody's talking about transitions being an issue with losing all these guys to the NFL. But the truth of the matter is that nobody in the country has more sort of untapped talent that they can put out on the field. The Buckeyes have the equivalent of 2 recruiting classes that have barely played, if at all played. So, it's a kind of an exciting thing. It's just a testament to what Urban Meyer's done. You have that much talent in reserve.
Buckeyes will have 4 straight night games this fall. I really like this schedule. It's going to be a tough schedule. Do you think there will be more than the 4 night games? The 4 scheduled night games are all in a row. At Wisconsin, at Penn State, Northwestern at home, Nebraska at home. Do you think there'll be more than just those 4?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. It's up to Urban Meyer. Every game but Michigan would be a night game. Urban loves night games, and let's be real here. He's 14-1 in night games at Ohio State, so you got to feel pretty good about your chances. That's a big deal. And in his career, going back to his days at Florida, they used to play, weakling teams at the start of the year at 6 to 7 p.m. kickoffs down in the swamp. So I know Urban likes the night games. Personally, I think games need to at least be 3:30, if not a night game, because even if it's against an average opponent, the crowd is more up for it because they've been drinking all day versus the sit on their hands crowds you get for noon games. I'm okay with it, but there's a couple things to unpack here. First of all, this is a hard schedule. I touched on this in the bucket a couple weeks ago, but I don't know if anybody in the country is going to play a harder schedule than Ohio State. This is 9 Big Ten games this year. This is the first year the Big Ten's going to the 9 games. All right, that's one of the toughest conferences in the country the last couple of years. And the Big Ten West draw that Ohio State has this year is at Wisconsin and home against Nebraska. And then, oh, by the way, home against Northwestern. That's the 2 favorites to win the Big Ten West and a team in Northwestern that won 10 games last year. That's as hard of a draw out of the West as you can get because I think those 3 teams are probably all better than Iowa's going to be this year. So not only is Ohio State playing a 9-game conference schedule, they're also playing the 3 best teams from the West, and they're in the Big Ten East, which is going to consistently be one of the toughest divisions in the country. Now, as for night games, I think it's a shoo-in that Oklahoma's a night game. That's a prime time, 2 top 5 teams playing each other kind of thing. I think that's going to be something that's going to be announced in the very near future to be a night game as well. This is all the conference night game selections from ESPN that we're seeing. But the other thing that nobody seems to be talking about is that every year Ohio State plays at least 1 night game on the Big Ten Network. The Cincinnati a couple years ago, Rutgers last year. I will not be surprised whatsoever if there's 1 game. I mean, it could even be Bowling Green or Tulsa. It wouldn't surprise me. That if the Big Ten Network has the rights for it, they're going to want to try to put the Buckeyes in prime time. That's the way the Big Ten Network has done things the last couple of years, is that while they don't own the first tier of games to broadcast the Buckeyes, their conference games are usually, the Purdue versus Illinois variety. They get 1 game a year for Ohio State Conference, and they usually get 1 of the preseason games if they're lucky. One of those 2 games I think the Big Ten Network will put at night. So I'm going to guess that they're going to have 6 of them at night during the regular season up to 12 games. So, the Buckeyes are not only going to play one of the toughest schedules in the country, I think they're going to get more exposure than maybe any other team in the country in terms of primetime football.
I completely agree. Oklahoma will be a night game, so they'll have at least 5, and I'm not sure if they'll have 6, but I see what you're saying. I will not be surprised at all if Big Ten Network throws one of those lesser games as a primetime game, so they might have half of their regular season schedule as night games. Let's finish the show with some basketball chatter real quick, Bax. For those that missed it in the boarding house yesterday, we are unfortunately hearing Thad Matta and staff are pessimistic about landing standout guard Markell Johnson from Cleveland East Tech. It sounds like Virginia Tech is the leader, Bax, which is odd to say the least. Johnson reclassified from the 2017 class to the 2016 class. This is not good news for the basketball Bucks, Bax. It's not over yet, but we're just hearing that the staff is pessimistic and Johnson's probably going to go to Virginia Tech. What do you make of all this?
It's really weird. It doesn't really sit right. First of all, when does Ohio State lose kids to Virginia Tech from Ohio in, well, anything? I mean, you have to go a ways back for me to remember anything like that. I mean, look at Tristan Thompson. He transferred from Virginia Tech to go to a bigger basketball program to come to Ohio State. So to have one of the top players in Ohio reclassify and then not go to Purdue or Michigan State or Michigan or Indiana or any of the other powers in the Big Ten, or even, the one thing if he was like, yeah, I'm going to Duke or I'm going to North Carolina or wherever, it doesn't make sense that he'd go to Virginia Tech. And from what that boarding house source was saying, there's some questionableness in the Ole Miss variety, it seems like, going on here. So let's put it this way, I'm going to be very pessimistic because Thad Matta is many things. Thad Matta is not the kind of guy who's going to go out and do something he shouldn't to land a recruit. Let's put it that way. So if that boarding house source is correct and Johnson goes to Virginia Tech, I don't know if Ohio State's necessarily missing out on anything in the big picture.
Great insights, as always, out of my man, Matt Baxendell. He is the People's Champ. You can catch his wildly popular column, The Bucket, every Sunday on Bucknuts. Thanks, as always, Bax. Thanks to the listeners for tuning into the show. I hope everyone has a great day. Let's hear some Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.